Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our webinar today. My name is Shekeb, and I will be demoing our iPad app for professors and how you can use that to interact with your students wirelessly in the classroom. The GoTo webinar control panel that's showing up on your computer screen has a hand icon, and if you hit that hand icon, I will then open up the microphone and allow you and give you an opportunity to ask a question. Just to make sure that everyone is comfortable with where that hand icon is, can I have you guys hit the hand icon? In the meantime, I will go through our agenda for today. I'm going to give you guys an introduction to the iPad app. I will then show you guys some hardware setup that you would need to have in place in order to be able to use the iPad wirelessly in the classroom to interact with your students. I'll show you guys how to access your course using the app, how to take attendance, how to present your slides and ask questions in class, how to engage students in written discussion responses. And at the end of the webinar, I'll also open up the floor for questions and I'll try to answer them. So it looks like everyone is comfortable with where the hand icon is. That's great. So yeah, during the webinar, if you have any questions, please do hit that hand icon and I'll try to answer them. The very first thing that you want to do is to open up a browser window, go into tophat.com and log into your professor account. So let me go ahead and do that right here. Once you're logged into your professor account, make sure that you're in the correct course. So in my case, I'm going to be demoing this in my intermediate microbiology course. Remember, there are three ways that you can use Top Hat as a professor, and there are three ways that your students can interact with you. If you click the information button, these are the three options that your students have for interacting with you. They can send a text message, they can use a computer and browse to this web address to respond to anything that you uh, pose in class or outside of class, and they can use mobile apps. And we have apps for iPhones, iPads, Android phones, and Android tablets. So those are the three options that students have. As a professor, the three options that you have is to use a web browser, which is what I'm showing right now, to use the presentation tool, which is a standalone application that runs on Windows and Mac computers, and or to use the iPad app, which is what the webinar today is going to be covering. The web browser interface for iPad for professors is by far the most powerful way to use Top Hat outside of the classroom. It is your best friend. And the web browser is how you will be creating your content. In my intermediate microbiology course, I've created all of these questions, as well as uploading your files and slides to be able to then use that with your iPad in the classroom. Now, the the very first thing that you want to do when you've logged into your professor account and you're in your course is to go into your course settings, go into the modules, and make sure that the files module is active. The files module is in beta, and I'll describe a little bit later what that means. Basically, it means that it doesn't support animations at this point. So let's go ahead and save that. Once you've activated the files module, let's scroll all the way down to the bottom here. The files module will be listed here, and you can then upload your PowerPoint presentations into the files module. Let's go ahead and click the create button, upload, and I have a native PowerPoint presentation right here that I'll upload into the files module. If you use any other presentation tools, uh, such as Keynote, our files module supports PowerPoint presentations natively. With any other presentation tools, we would suggest that you export your file as a PDF, your presentation as a PDF, and then you can upload it into the files module here. So let me go ahead and upload presentation 25. Wait for it for a few seconds to upload, then it will process that document. And once it finishes processing, it gives you an option to give it a name and a description. Both of these are optional. If you don't give it a name and a description, it will use the original file name, in my case, presentation 25. So go ahead and load that up. And once it's loaded, it now resides on the Top Hat cloud servers inside of your account. That's all that you would need to do before class in a web browser window. Basically, just load up your presentation. And maybe if you'd like to engage students in some questions, have some questions created in your account. Let's move that off screen. The other thing that you want to do before class is to make sure that you have installed the Top Hat app on your iPad. And let me pull up my iPad here. So the way I'm doing this is I have a physical iPad mini in my hand, and I'm mirroring the screen of my iPad onto the computer screen so that you can see it. And this is what the Top Hat app looks like. And to install that, you would go into the App Store on your iPad, and in the top right corner here, you would search for Top Hat, two words, and our app will be the first one that shows up. Here it is. When you're doing this up here, it'll probably, it's not going to say open if you haven't already installed the app. It'll say free, and you would just tap free. It says install. You would then tap install. It would ask you for your username, your Apple ID, and your iPad Apple ID password. It would then install the app on your iPad, and once it's installed, this is what it looks like right here. The next thing that you want to do is to basically that's all you would do before class. So before class, load your presentations into your Top Hat account using a browser window, and then make sure that you've installed the Top Hat app on your iPad. Once you're in class, uh, you can then launch the app. So let's pretend that we've walked into class now. You would launch the app. It will ask you for your username and password. Let me log out. So this is where it would ask you for your username and password. You would type that in. And let me type my password off screen here. Give me 1 second. Once you've typed all of that information, you can either click the go button or the login button, and you're logged into your account. The first screen that you're going to see when you log in is the Get Started guide. Now, you can do everything wirelessly on your iPad. You don't have to present anything on a projector screen. If you don't present anything on a projector screen, those students that are logged in with their own computers or mobile device, they would be able to see everything that you're doing on your iPad through the app on their own devices. But undoubtedly, there will be a lot of students in class that don't have their own device or would like not to use their own device throughout the lecture. And that's what the Getting Started guide tells us. It gives us directions for how to present everything on a projector screen. And the way this works is that it says nowadays pretty much every classroom has a projector screen. And that projector screen is almost always hooked up to a computer. Maybe it's a classroom computer, maybe it's a laptop. What you would do is to walk up to that computer, open up a browser window, again, log into your Top Hat account in that browser window, and then put that browser window up on the projector screen so that the entire class can see it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me pull this off screen. And let's pretend that my computer screen here is the projector screen that the whole class can see. You would then open up a browser window, log into your Top Hat account, and put that browser window up on the projector screen so that the entire class can see it. And to make things easier, you would probably want to maximize that browser window so that it takes up the entire projector screen. I needed to do that manually because I'm running a few different windows on my computer, but you can probably press one of these maximize buttons if you're on a Mac or a PC. Just make sure that the browser window is taking up the entire projector screen. For the purposes of our webinar, I'm not going to leave this maximized because I need all of the screen space to do the rest of the demo. So I'll just leave it in the corner here. And I'll pull back my iPad here. And once again, in that browser window that you display to the classroom, just make sure that you're in the correct course and in the correct section of the course if you have multiple courses. Now, everything else happens wirelessly on your iPad, so your students would not be seeing the iPad screen. They would just be seeing the browser window. On your iPad, you would then go into My Courses. I have a large number of courses. You would go into the appropriate course, and for me, it's Intermediate Microbiology. I'm not going to cover the gradebook in today's webinar. I'm just going to focus on the lecture. So let's go into lecture. Once you enter the lecture, you have access to the various modules on the left-hand side. The modules that will be available to you on the iPad on the left-hand side depend on which modules you activated in your course settings when using a browser. Just as a reminder, if you're using a browser, you can go into your course settings, modules, and these are all the different files and modules that you can activate. So let's cancel that. The very first thing that you would want to do on your iPad is to go into the files and slides. And here's that presentation 25 that we loaded into our course a while ago using the browser window. And you can then toggle the status of that presentation to present. And as soon as you do, the presentation pops up on your iPad screen and it pops up on the browser window in the background. So now the whole class can see that presentation because they can see this browser window on a projector screen. You can use these arrows to navigate between your various different slides. You can go into slide 2 and it updates in the background there. And you can use the pencil tool to make annotations on your slide. And if you make any annotations on the slide, uh, they all show up on the projector screen in the background here. You can use this here to change colors and make annotations with different colors if you like. If you tap this icon, it cycles between the different line thicknesses, so we can make really thin annotations and really thick annotations. It just cycles between them. If you use this icon, it will undo the last annotation that you made. That's the undo button. And if you use this icon, that's the eraser icon, if you tap that and you tap any of these annotations, that annotation disappears from the iPad screen and from the projector screen. So that's the eraser icon. Let's delete that one as well. And when you're using the eraser icon, you just tap any of the annotations. You don't need to make an eraser motion with your finger on the iPad screen. Let's carry on to the next slide. If and when you would like to take attendance, you would tap this icon, which will bring you back to the various different modules that you have access to. And right now we're in the files and slides module. When you're first using the iPad app, you're probably not going to remember what these icons represent. And so if you tap any of these icons twice, it pulls out the drawer with the name of the icons. So if you would like to take attendance, you can then go into the attendance module. And when you go into the attendance module, you have an option here that says take attendance. And if you tap take attendance, it pops up the 4-digit attendance code on your iPad. That 4-digit attendance code also pops up on the projector screen so that now the whole class can see the code. Again, remember, students have 3 options for how they can respond, and they can send that 4-digit code as a text message to this telephone number. That's the telephone number for my course. It would be different for your course. Uh, it would Students can use a web browser to respond, or they can use mobile apps. For bits and pieces of this webinar, I am going to pretend to be a student and I'll answer some of the questions. And I will use the web browser option to answer as a student. And so let me go ahead and do that right now. I will pull up another browser window here, log into my Top Hat account as a student. So this is my student account. And make sure that I'm in the correct course as a student. In this case, I am in the intermediate microbiology course. And as a student, I can see that presentation that you're presenting. And uh, because we're taking attendance, I can see there's a box here that asks me to enter that 4-digit attendance code. And so if I know the code to be 6637, I will punch that in and submit that. And when I submit that as a student, I get confirmation that I've submitted that attendance code. Let me minimize my student account. The projector screen shows what percent of the enrolled students in this class have submitted that code. In our case, this class has 4 students and only one of them has submitted this code. And the iPad screen also gives you that information in real time. It tells you that 25% of the class has responded so far. You have a number of options. You can finish the attendance right away and carry on with the rest of the lecture. You can minimize the attendance code on the projector screen, maximize it back on the projector screen, hide it completely on the projector screen. In most cases, you would want to finish attendance right away. And you also have those options if you tap the close button. In most cases, you would probably want to finish attendance right away. And so if you tap that icon, the attendance disappears from your iPad screen. The attendance code disappears on the projector screen here. And on the student's devices, that box asking them for the attendance code disappears. And so if any student comes in late, they would not have the option of submitting that attendance code. You can take attendance multiple times during a lecture if you like by going back to the attendance module and just clicking take attendance again. But I'm not going to do that. Let's go back to our slide and let's go to the next slide. It's the same process if and when you would like to ask a question in class. When you'd like to ask a question, again, you go into the various different modules. One of these modules is for questions, and if you tap any of these modules twice, it pulls out the names. And so here's our questions module. You can then go into the questions module, and all of the questions that you have previously created using the browser window will be available to you here, as well as any folders. And if you tap into a folder, you're now inside of that folder. And if you'd like to exit that folder, you can tap up here. And now we've exited the folder that was called Quiz 1. I'm going to ask this multiple choice question. So you can then toggle the status of that question to ask. And when you do, again, that question pops up on your iPad screen and the projector window in the background updates automatically. So on the projector window, the text of the question shows up. If the question has any images associated with it, it shows up, as well as the options. This is a multiple choice question, and the text messaging code for anyone that wants to respond by text message, as well as a reminder for the course's SMS response telephone number. In my case, I'm going to, sorry, so in this case, if a student, for example, wanted to respond with option B by text message, they would send in 6723A. So here's, or B in this case. Here's an example if it was option A. And they would send that as a text message to that telephone number, and the submissions count would go up, and the entire class can see that on a projector screen. Again, let me pull up my browser window where I'm pretending to be a student and respond as a student. So as a student, I can see that question, I can read the text of the question, select an answer, submit that answer, and when I submit an answer, I'll get a confirmation in the bottom here as to what answer I submitted. On the projector screen, uh, the submission counts are still there. And on the iPad screen, you have all of that information showing up live privately on your iPad screen. So it tells you what percent of your online students have responded. The checkbox tells you what the correct answer is. So in our case, option B is the correct answer. That's the answer that I assigned to be correct when I created this question. Um, no one has responded with option A or option C. 100% of the responses that came in were for option B. Once you've decided that you've given the class enough time to respond, you would disable submissions. When you disable submissions on the projector screen, the text message code disappears so that students no longer have the option to respond. By the way, if you ever use the mouse on that computer that's displaying the browser window and you hover to the left, the sidebar pulls out. And so once in a while during our demo, if you see this sidebar, it's because I'm using a mouse on the projector screen. Um, you can then show, so you're seeing the results live on your iPad. You can show those results to the class by tapping this button. And if you do, it directs you to the projector screen. And on the projector screen, the histogram shows up. So now that the entire class can see this on the projector screen. Um, so 100% of the responses that came in, which were 2 responses, were both for option B. Uh, you can tap show answer on your iPad. And again, on the projector screen, it highlights the correct answer for the class. So the correct answer is option B. Uh, again, the checkbox up here on the iPad always tells you what the correct answer is assigned to be. And when you're ready to move on, you would close the question and carry on with the rest of the lecture. In our case, just before I do that, I'll bring your attention to the 2 dots under presenting up here. What that means, what that's telling us is that there are 2 items active and visible to the class right now. If you put a finger down on the projector screen and navigate, swipe to the left or swipe to the right, if you put a finger down on the iPad screen and swipe to the left or swipe to the right, you'll be able to navigate between the different items. The two items for us are the slide that we were on when we asked that question and the actual question. And you'll notice in the background, the projector screen updates in real time. So right now, the projector screen is showing the question to the class. And if I swipe over, the projector screen updates back to the slide that I was on. Let me go back to the question. If you would like to do this a little bit more privately, you can tap this icon at the top right, and you'll get a bird's eye view of all the items that are visible to the class right now. Here's the question, here's the presentation, and you'll notice that now, as I'm cycling between these, the projector screen in the background does not update. Let's go back to the question. And let me pull up the student's browser window for a second. So any student that's logged into the course using their own device, they can see both of those items whenever they like. So here's the question that they're viewing. And if they scroll down on their device, here is the projector slide, the presentation slide that they're able to view. Let's go back to the iPad. When you're ready to close a question, you would then close that item, and you have three options for how you can close it. You can close the question completely, which means students do not have access to it, or you can assign the status of that question to review or to homework. As a reminder, if you assign something as review, students can access that item at their leisure. They would be able to view it, go through it. They would have a button that shows them the correct answer if you've assigned a correct answer, but they cannot submit any new answers. If you assign something as homework, students, again, at their leisure, they can go through it, they can view it, they can submit answers, but they cannot view the correct answer. In most cases, when you're doing this in class, you would want to close the question completely. And when you do, the question disappears from your iPad screen. The iPad returns to the same slide that you were on when you asked the question, as well the projector screen returns to that same slide that you were on when you asked the question. Let's carry on to the next slide. By the way, if you guys have any questions at any point, please do hit the hand icon. And it looks like there are no questions so far. Um, if you find yourself in a situation like this, where you have a question built into your PowerPoint presentation, but you did not have time to create that in Top Hat before class, you can still ask these types of questions. So you would not go into the different modules because you haven't created this question in one of those modules. Instead, you would use the quick ask button down here at the bottom. And if you tap that, the software package takes a picture of that slide and gets ready to send that off to the students. Before it does, it asks you what type of a question it is and what some of the options and possible answers are. The quick ask, remember, Top Hat supports 6 types of questions: uh, multiple choice, word answer, numeric answer, sorting problems, matching problems, and click on target. The quick ask system only supports 3 of those question types: multiple choice, word answer, question, numeric answer. And you would then decide what type of a question it is. So in our case, it's multiple choice. Let's go back to multiple choice. How many options does it have? Our multiple choice question has 5 options. And what is the correct answer? In our case, the correct answer is option C. You can assign multiple correct answers if you like, or none at all. In my case, I'm going to assign option C as the correct answer. And you're creating this question privately. And when you're ready, you would click the ask button. If you click the save button, the software package will save that question in your Top Hat account, but it will not ask the students the question. They don't get to see the question. If you use the ask button, the question is saved and presented to the students at the same time. And when you're doing this in class, you'd want to ask that question right away. And when you do, it takes a couple of seconds. Your iPad will update. And the projector screen in the background updates. So let's go back to the iPad. It tells, here's the picture associated with the question, the choices, and there's some more at the bottom. 0% of the class has responded so far. And when I created this question, I assigned option C as the correct answer. On the projector screen, students can view that question. Here is the text messaging code for anyone that wants to respond by text messaging. Let me bring up my student browser window. Students, again, can see that question. they can click on that image to view a larger version of that question, or because they can see both items at the same time, they can also scroll down a little bit and read that question from the projector slide. They would then select an answer, option C, let's say, submit that answer. They'll get the confirmation right away. The projector screen tells us that one student has submitted a response so far, and that represents 100% of our online students. Your iPad would tell you what percent of the students have responded, and option C was the most popular response, and so it moves up to the front here. Just like before, at some point you would disable submissions, show the results, and the results show up on the projector screen in the background there, and show the answer. And again, the answer is highlighted in the projector screen in the background here. So the correct answer is option C, and 100% of the responses came in as option C. Again, there's two items visible to the class, and at some point you would close the question, and when you do, now there's only one item visible to the class, and that one item is the projector, the presentation slide. You would then carry on with the rest of your slides, and at some point, uh, when you're finished, you can close that slide, and when you close that presentation, you have again two options. You can close the file completely, which means students do not have access, or you can assign it as available, which means students can access this PowerPoint file after class. In my case, I'm going to assign the status to available. And so when you close a question, regardless of what status you close it in, the iPad returns to its initial state. And if you ever go back to that files and slides, you'll notice that presentation 25 is now in the available status. Your browser window that's showing up on the projector screen also returns to its initial state. And if you walk up to that computer and you scroll through and you go down to the bottom, you'll also notice that presentation 25 is in the available status. So this green icon here is our green closed book icon, is our available status icon. What all of this means is that, let me pull up my student browser window here. What that means is that any student that logs into the course would have access to that file, and they can then click that file, go through the presentation at their own leisure if they like to, and they can download that file and run it natively on their own computer if they like to. So let's go back to the iPad. At any point on your iPad or using your browser window, you can go back to the files module and toggle the status of that presentation to closed. And when you do, it disappears from the student's browser window. So now students don't have access to that file any longer. Um, so if you guys have any questions about anything we've covered so far, please do hit the hand icon. And it looks like there are no questions. So let's carry on with discussions, how to engage your students in written discussion responses. Again, one of these icons is the discussions module. And if you tap any of them twice, it pulls out the name. And so this is the icon for discussions. And when you're creating these discussions, again, you'd want to create them before class using a browser window, maybe assign them as homework and give the class, a few hours, a few days, a week or so to respond to these discussion threads. Or maybe you can just engage them for the first time in the classroom. I'm going to demo this using GM organisms, and this is a discussion response that I've assigned as homework, and some students have submitted some responses. And so you can then, again, toggle the status of that discussion response to any of the 5 that we have available here. If you assign something as discuss, that means students in the classroom can view it and submit new responses to it. If you assign something as show, students can view it, but they cannot submit new responses. If you assign something as homework, students are not forced to view it. In these first two, they're forced to view it on their devices. If you assign something as homework, they're not forced to view it. They can view it at their leisure and they can submit new responses. If you assign something as review, students are not forced to view it. They can view it at their leisure by just clicking the item, and they cannot submit any new responses. They can only view the responses that were already submitted. If you're going to engage students in the classroom using your iPad, the two options that you would want to use are discuss or show, so that everyone can see this on the projector screen on their own devices and you can see it on the iPad screen. And if you'd like them to be able to submit new responses as you're doing this, the discuss option is the one you would go with. So let's toggle this one to discuss. And so this is the topic that I submitted, discuss how a specific genetically modified organism might provide a benefit for humans and at the same time pose a threat to a population or ecosystem. Here are some responses that some students have submitted in the past, and I can scroll through these if you like. Some of these students have included images, and if you tap any of these, you would be able to view the image that that student included. Let's close that image. You would see how many votes this response received. And when you assign something, when you engage students in discussion topics, they can vote for responses. But before I get into all of that, I'm going to show you what everything looks like on a projector screen and on the students' devices. So on the projector screen, again, the topic pops up, responses that students have submitted pops up, and the text messaging code pops up. So anyone that wants to respond by text messaging, they can. Let me pull up my student account here. On the student account, again, submissions that other students have submitted would show up, and these show up depending on the privacy settings that you set up when you created this discussion response. Students that want to submit new responses, they can open up this browser window and submit a response. So I'm just going to paste a response that I have here. They can attach a doodle if they like. So let me make some doodles here and submit that. And when students submit, again, depending on the privacy settings that you have assigned when you created this discussion response, that response shows up in the students' devices. These are the arrows that they can use to uh, vote on responses. Students cannot vote on their own responses. And all of that shows up in real time on your iPad. So here's that new response that I typed in, and here's that image that I included with it. And let's close that image. And if you tap this response, so yourself as a professor, you can submit comments to responses or submit brand new responses. So in this case, if you tap this, you'd be able to read the entire response. And if you'd like to reply to it, you can tap there and type in great. And this icon here will submit that response. There it is. And this X will bring us back to the main thread. And so now that response has one comment associated with it. If you would like to type in a brand new response, you would type in uh, tap create reply at the bottom here. Use this area to type in your new response. Let's type in new reply. And you can send that new reply off. And again, there it is, new reply. Khan is my professor account username. Again, if there are any questions about this process, please do hit the hand icon. At some point, you would want to close that discussion topic. And you do have the three options. And in my case, I'm just going to close it completely. And when you do, the iPad returns to its initial state. The projection screen returns to its initial state. And the iPad also tells you how many students are online. So in our case, this course has 4 students enrolled, and one of them is online right now. And if you tap any of these icons on the left-hand side, the full name of the module shows up. And so that's all that I wanted to cover in our iPad webinar today. If you guys have any questions, I will be around for another 5 minutes after the webinar. Please feel free to ask any questions. As well, I'm going to open up the microphones for a couple of seconds. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to speak into the microphone. All right, so it looks like there are no questions. Thank you very much for being a part of our webinar today. If you guys have any questions about this, please do contact us, support@tophat.com, or the support button in your professor account here. So click the support button, submit a request. Any comments or requests here, just submit that to us, and we will try to get back to you as soon as we can. Our official line with that, by the way, is a few hours during regular North American business hours, so from 9 a.m., from 8 a.m. Eastern Time to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's cancel that. And thank you so much for being a part of our webinar. Have a great day. Bye bye.